Hey guys, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the King Joey Football Podcast. My name is Joey, and get ready for episode 1. Okay, so clearly, two things I want to kind of get off my chest. First of all, number one, if you notice some things around the room as well as the shirt that I'm wearing there you go, as well as some other things that you might see around the room. I am an Arsenal supporter. So, yes, that may cloud my judgment on some things at times, and yes, I may be biased at times. I'll fully admit it. And some things that are going to be said today might actually trigger some people, because today I'm going to be doing my 2022-23 league position predictions. So I'm going to predict what I think will happen in the Premier League and where I think all 20 Premier League clubs will finish. I might kind of, wax lyrical on who I think might win the Golden Boot, who might be the top assister, and who might win Player of the Year in the English Premier League. So those are things we're going to be discussing today. But moreover, this is going to be sort of a, universal or global football podcast, but with a specific emphasis on the English Premier League, of course, Arsenal, but I will from time to time talk about probably the top 5 leagues in Europe, so including the English Premier League, the Bundesliga in Germany, Ligue 1 in France, the Serie A in Italy, and La Liga in Spain. So, and I might even, because if you can hear me speaking and look at my accent and listen to my accent, it's clear that I am American. So I might talk about MLS, Major League Soccer, every now and then as well. So, but for today, what we're going to be talking about is mainly the Premier League season, because today it is Friday, August 5th. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and about 4 hours from now, Arsenal will be playing Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, and that will be the official opening of the 2022-23 Premier League season. And boy, do we need something different than what happened last year. If anybody remembers, we lost the first 3 games of the season to Brentford, Chelsea, and Manchester City last year. Just particularly sour for me because I was in Las Vegas with my wife Lisa last year for the Chelsea game. We watched that game at McMullen's Pub with the Stateside Gooners, and I was looking forward to a good time, and it was not a very good time because we lost that game, I believe 2-0 that day. So, yeah, we definitely need something different this year as far as the start of the season goes, and I am praying that we get it. I think we will. I've been keeping track of the Arsenal preseason. Actually, my wife and I, Lisa, as well as several of the other Richmond Gooners. So we are in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm the vice president of the Richmond Gooners Arsenal America chapter. So our chapter president, Tom, myself, my wife Lisa, and a whole bunch of us went to Baltimore to see the Arsenal game against Everton that was played at M&T Bank Stadium where the Ravens play. And what an experience and what a fun time getting to, meet everyone and just kind of fellowship with Gunners from all over the United States. There's people that came from Africa, that came from some crazy places just to watch Arsenal preseason games. It was awesome getting to hang out with folks like Mike Feinberg from the Gooners podcast. Awesome getting to meet and hang out with Aston Mack, a guy that I'm happy to be able to call my friend now. Awesome to meet people like Tiffany Campo, who is a person that has really organized a lot of that, what we did in Baltimore, and then subsequently in Orlando. My wife and I didn't go to Orlando. We had some things back in Richmond to take care of, but Tiffany is responsible for a lot of the event planning and putting a lot of that stuff together. She's dope. So, just people like that, just consummate Gooners and consummate people. Also got a chance to kind of meet and hang out with James McNicholas from Gunner Blog. Met and shook Danny Carbassian's hand. That was really cool, and really just an awesome time. And kind of seeing players and just everything I could dream of as far as an Arsenal preseason experience over here in the States. So But anyway, I think we will do better this season, especially at the beginning, because if anyone has been following the Arsenal's preseason like I have, it's pretty encouraging. It's pretty encouraging. The signings that we've made, I don't necessarily want to get into all of them now, but we haven't seen Fabio Vieira play yet. But the signings we've made, like Alexander Zinchenko, of course, Gabriel Jesus, and, we saw Marquinhos play. He's, I think, more one for the future, but we liked what we saw, and I think the club liked what they saw when we saw him play briefly in Baltimore. But, it's kind of one of those things where, it's encouraging. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but it's definitely encouraging. It's encouraging because I think that, number one, we're starting to see a real identity, and we're starting to see, I think, what the manager wants to be conveyed on the pitch. I think he's got his players in. I think he's really got his system, and we're really starting to see that, and it's really starting to become really specific. And number two, I think just as far as engagement with the fans and supporters, and I think that there are a lot of people for a little bit now, probably since maybe even before Arsene Wenger left. I think the shine was off the apple a bit for a lot of folks, and I think a lot of people and a lot of supporters felt kind of disconnected from our club. I know I'm guilty of that too. For there was a period of time there where I sort of felt a disconnect from our club, and I'm happy to say now that is no longer the case. And a lot of folks that I know and talk to on a daily basis, a lot of Gunners, a lot of Gunner supporters, a lot of Gooners tell me that they feel the same way, and that now they feel more engaged and they feel more connected to the club. So I think that's a pretty big thing. But enough about Arsenal for now. Let's go into what I think how I think the Premier League is going to shape up this season. So I think in 20th place this season, I'm going to start with, I guess, relegation, and then I'm going to kind of go towards the middle, and then I'm going to go to sort of the European places, 5 and 6, and then, how I think the top four is going to shake out. I think in 20th place, I have Bournemouth, AFC Bournemouth. It's not going to be a good year for Bournemouth. I don't think it will. They've barely done any business. They are, I don't necessarily want to call them a yo-yo club, but they are, I believe, more suited to the Championship than they are to the Premier League. And they have some good players. They still have Dominic Solanke, players like that. I just don't know if their crop of players can get it done in the Premier League. I really think it's going to be a struggle for Bournemouth this year. So I've got them propping up the Premier League, and I don't even really think it's going to be close. In 19th, this might shock some people. In 19th, I have Leeds United. So Leeds United, I just think that they are close to being good. They're close to being something special. But number one, they lost, I think, by a miles and miles, their two best players in Calvin Phillips, who has moved on to Manchester City, and Rafinha, who has moved on to Barcelona. If anybody was kind of following that saga, Arsenal were asking about him, and Arsenal supporters are really excited, and then it seemed like Chelsea were going to hijack the deal, and that was going to kind of be a statement piece from Todd Bowley at Chelsea in the kind of infancy of his ownership of that club. And then it sounded like Chelsea had a bid accepted from Leeds United, and then Rafinha waited until a deal with Barcelona couldn't materialize, and he went ahead and went to Barcelona. It was kind of a crazy sort of saga thing, but he's gone. Calvin Phillips is gone, and it seems like just those two players were really their driving force, and it seems like it's really going to be tough for them to just cope with those players, with the absence of those players. And again, they're two best players by a long shot. And then we have to think about Patrick Bamford and his injury issues. Is he going to stay healthy throughout a Premier League season? If he stays healthy for the whole season, can he get it done? I like Bamford. I think he's a decent player, but it's one of those things where if I had to put money down on it, I would guess that he's maybe not going to be available for the entirety of the Premier League season. So I've got Leeds United finishing 19th. However, if you told me that they finished, if they end up finishing 15th or 16th, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I think the jury's still out on Jesse Marsch. A lot of people, I think, don't love Jesse Marsch because he is such a slap. I don't want to say a slap in the face, but he is such a departure from what Leeds are known for, which is a real tough, gritty and grimy sort of blue collar, just an ethos about their club. And Jesse Marsch comes in and he's quoting Buddha and Mother Teresa and things like that. It just seems like it might be an awkward fit with Jesse Marsch in their club. So, and again, Jesse Marsch is an American manager. I think he has got some decent ideas. I'm always going to root for Americans, but it's one of those things where I'm just not sure if it's the right fit. So I've got Leeds in 19th. In 18th, I have Brentford. Brentford is a curious one because I think last year, if they hadn't had Christian Eriksen last year, I think they would have gone down. Eriksen has gone. I think his contract just ended there. He signed with Manchester United on a free transfer, which is, I think that's actually really good business for Manchester United. He signed there on a free transfer, and I think Brentford, at least last year, as Christian Eriksen went, Brentford went. He was massive for them last year, and I think the jury's still out on players like Ivan Toney, guys like that. I think Toney, again, I've seen Toney in the Championship, and I've seen him play, and I think he's a good player. I just don't know, is it going to be one of those where he's, where he's too good for the Championship but not good enough for the Premier League? I think the jury's still out on that. The same could be said about another example is Alexander Mitrovic at Fulham. He's been in the Premier League before. He scores 100,000 goals a season in the Championship, but when he comes to the Premier League, it's kind of, you don't get the same levels. You don't even really get anywhere close. So I've got Brentford in 18th to go down, and thus ends my relegation team. So I've got Bournemouth in 20th, Leeds United in 19th, and Brentford in 18th. Now, in 17th place, I've got Southampton. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Southampton. They've been kind of flirting with it for a while now. Again, I don't think it's going to be a good season for Southampton. I think they just barely stay up. And not necessarily because of their own merits. I think they stay up because I think they've done better as far as retaining their more talented players. It's more of Brentford and Leeds have lost immense players that were massive for them. So I think that's going to take them down. And a natural byproduct of that is that Southampton is going to, stay up, or Southampton is going to go up because a couple of other clubs have come down. So Southampton in 17th, I think they'll just barely hang on, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got relegated this year or if they got relegated within the next 2 years or so, call it. So in 16th, I've got Nottingham Forest. Forest, I think they might hang on for a bit. This is going to be a pivotal season for Nottingham Forest. I believe if they stay up this season, I believe they'll stay up for a few more seasons at minimum. I think this season is so pivotal for Nottingham Forest. And so I think their 5-year or 10-year plan, I believe, hinges on whether or not they stay up this season. So, I got a lot of time for Nottingham Forest. I'm rooting for them. If you know a little bit about the history of Arsenal owes our red colors to Nottingham Forest because we showed up for a game, didn't have shirts. Nottingham Forest loaned us some red shirts, and we have been our club associated with red ever since then. So we owe Forest for our colors. They were a massive team a long, long time ago. They've won a lot of things a long, long time ago, and just generally, I've got time for them, and I hope they stay up within the league. 15th, a lot of people aren't going to be pleased with this because an Arsenal legend is coaching this team, but in 15th I have Crystal Palace. So I think with Crystal Palace, I think Vieira has done a really, really good job, and I really hope that even if they finish, around this spot this year, I really hope that Crystal Palace invests in and believe in Patrick Vieira for the long term, because I believe that he can really do big things at that club. I think he could really help that club in more ways than just an on-the-pitch product. Again, losses, or player losses that hurt them. Wilfried Zaha is going to be Wilfried Zaha. He's going to come down the left, cut in. Somebody's going to breathe on him too hard, and he's going to go down and win 7 penalties this year. That is Zaha is as Zaha does. And I even like Wilfried Zaha as a player. I think he's a fine player, but we just know that's going to happen 7 to 10 times in the league this year. So Zaha going to Zaha. I think the loss of the Chelsea loanee Conor Gallagher is going to be a pretty big deal for Crystal Palace. And I think some other things and some other players, they just haven't seemed to really get it right at the center forward position too. So to the point where they're going to depend on Zaha for a lot of their goal output. And Conor Gallagher last season kind of took some of that weight off of Zaha. But if you think about their striker room, if you think about Benteke, I think he's still there. Ayew, I think he's still there. Edouard, he's relatively new there, and I think any of these guys on their day could put a great performance together. But I feel like none of them are as consistent as they need to be for Crystal Palace to really kick on. So that's where I think Crystal Palace is going to finish in 15th. So I think I'm going to round out the rest of my top 10 here. From 14th through, or my bottom half rather, my bottom 10. From 14th through 11, 14th I have Fulham, 13th I have Everton, 12th I have Brighton, and 11th I have Wolves. Now I think a lot of people, including myself, I'm kind of surprised at where I have Everton specifically in this. As I said earlier, I went to Baltimore and saw Everton play, and I saw a lot of their starters, and it was an absolute dumpster fire. It was bad. They were bad. And, again, it's preseason, so we can't put too much stock into it. But if I were on the blue half of or in the blue half of Merseyside right now, I would be pretty discouraged based on what I've seen in the preseason from Everton. I think they'll get it together to the point where I think they will not necessarily be as threatened by relegation as they were last year. Everton is one of those clubs that I feel just belongs in the Premier League. They are a Premier League club. That is what they are. And I think the aspirations of, the board at that club and the ownership team of that club, I think the aspirations would be, even better than this. I think would be top half, and they would want to be pushing for maybe a Europa League spot. That is where they, I think, would want to be as a club. But they really got to get it going, and it could be one of those things where Everton, they get it going and they've got the players. I mean, they've got such good players. They got Calvert-Lewin, but I don't know if this is true. I heard a rumor that maybe he did his ACL in training the other day. So who knows what the case is there. But players like Calvert-Lewin, I'm not sure if Andros Townsend is still there. They've got Dele Alli, who is a player that I personally hate, but the thing about Dele Alli is at his best he's really, really good, but at his worst he is abject garbage. He was completely invisible in the game that Arsenal played against Everton as part of their preseason out in Baltimore, or up in Baltimore rather. But they have some really talented players, which it makes it all the more kind of quizzical or puzzling how they've been so bad recently. But I think they're going to get it together. I would hope that they do. I think Frank's going to get it together. I think the last I read, this would be a huge help for them if they were to be able to engineer the return of Idrissa Gana Gueye from PSG. I believe he's at right now. I think they're in talks to do that, or I don't know if it's official yet, but that is something that would really, really help them out because they need a lot of help in that particular area. So again, the other teams that were in this kind of group were Fulham, Brighton, and Wolves. So Fulham, of the teams that are coming up, I think I've got Fulham the highest at 14th. So obviously this relies quite a bit on the goal production and the attacking production of Alexander Mitrovic. It's going to be, I think as he goes, the club is going to go. They've lost Fabio Carvalho, who is signed with Liverpool on a long-term contract, so I think that is going to affect them. But again, Fulham, I guess from when I started watching Premier League football a long, long time ago, Fulham is another one of those clubs that I'd always hoped to see. You know, they've been gone for a little while, but they're one of those clubs that I've always hoped to see back into the Premier League because I think that is kind of where they belong. They are, to me, a Premier League club based on the era in which I started really, really paying attention to it as well. So, and I think that brings us to the top 10. In 10th place, I have Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa, it's another one where I think they are going to, and I hope they do. I hope they see a long-term future with Steven Gerrard being the manager there. And, you know, I hope they really give him a chance again. I got time for Steven Gerrard. So I think with the players they have and the tactics that they have, I think that they will sort of remain in the top half. I see them as sort of an 8 to 10 team for a little while, and then based on some of the players they bring in and some of the things they do around the club, I think maybe that'll shift up or down based on that. But top 10 finish for Aston Villa. In 9th, I've got Leicester City. So Leicester, some people might even say this is a high prediction for Leicester City. As far as I know, the only team in the top 5 divisions of English football, or in the professional divisions, to not make a single incoming transfer. Newcastle is after James Maddison. According to reports, Arsenal, and to a lesser degree maybe Manchester United, are after Yuri Tielemans. According to reports, Chelsea are after Wesley Fofana. If they aren't careful, their team could get really ripped apart, you know, in the next 3 weeks or 3 weeks or however many weeks are left in the transfer window for the rest of this month. If they're not careful, it could be really bad for them because it doesn't seem like they are even trying to reinforce their squad. So I believe in Brendan Rodgers and I believe in a lot of their players. Jamie Vardy is on the older side, but you know I believe in them. But if they lose, I would say if they lose 2 out of the 3 of Maddison, Tielemans, and Fofana, I think this 9th place finish could be knocked down several spots. So that's one to keep an eye on. In 8th, I've got Newcastle United. Eddie Howe has just signed a new long-term contract to remain at the helm of the project at Newcastle United. They have more money than Jesus himself. It's going to happen. We're going to see sort of a rise, at least money-wise and spending-wise. I think we're going to see what we saw at Manchester City, you know, sort of post the David Silva arrival, or at the beginning, right around the David Silva arrival, you know, the levels and the amounts of money that they're about to spend. I think we're going to see that pretty soon. Again, Eddie Howe is another manager that I believe in. They've got decent players. I'm a huge fan of Alan Saint-Maximin. I think he's an excellent player. I think I would love to have him at Arsenal. I think they have decent, reliable strikers. They bought Joe Willock from Arsenal, and he's done really, really well there. I think they've got some key pieces, and I think Eddie Howe, tactically and just his level of motivation, you know, he's got guys that came in like Bruno Guimaraes, who came in and made an impact immediately. Again, there was a lot of rumors that Arsenal was in for Bruno, and as part of their announcement video for him, there was a lot of mentions of several mentions of Arsenal in the announcement video for him going to Newcastle, which I was not a fan of, but that's neither here nor there. He's done really, really well for them and kind of creates just a focal point, or not a focal point, but a pass-through point of both attack and defense. Sort of everything sort of passes through him when he's fit and in that team, and it's I think they have the money, or they're going to have the money or access to the money now and or very soon. But I think that Eddie Howe is really trying to build something organic there. And instead of just sort of buying players and plug and play, I think he's really looking for specific profiles. And, of course, I respect that type of process because, again, that's what Arsenal's doing right now. And it seems to be working because we're improving. So, Newcastle in 8th. And 7th, I have West Ham United. It kind of hinges on them keeping their players, which it seems like they're going to do. Seems like Declan Rice is going to stay for a bit longer. Another one is Jared Bowen. I'm a big fan of Jared Bowen. I got a lot of time for Michail Antonio. I got a lot of time for Aaron Cresswell. They have some really good players. I got a lot of time for Fabianski. Fabianski is a former Arsenal player. And we know that he is a hell of a shot stopper. Yeah, he's getting up there in age now, but he's a pretty good goalkeeper. He's pretty good with us, too. And I think he ultimately left because he was good enough to be starting at another club. It was kind of another sort of Emi Martinez situation. So they've got some really, really good, powerful pieces. You think about the Czech players, Souček and Soufal. Lanzini when he's fit. And he can't stay healthy, man, but when he is a hell of a little player. They just have really, really good pieces. And David Moyes has those guys willing to run through 100 brick walls for him. And that's just, Moyes gonna Moyes. That's just what he does. He motivates people to a degree that it seems like not a lot of other managers do. So West Ham United in 7th, just kind of barely missing out on a European spot. Now, here's the sort of the cream of the crop here, and here's where some people might get a little triggered here. So I apologize in advance. But also, if you do get triggered, I don't fucking care. I don't care. In 6th place, I have, and this is all based on today. So the season starts today. So transfers and things like that, I'm basing it on right now, not what teams could get, what they have right now, and that's what I'm basing it on. Maybe my opinions will change in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the window ends, but this is kind of what I'm basing this on right now. In 6th place, Manchester United. They're kind of a dumpster fire right now. And I think that they are going to give Erik ten Hag the time, similar to what the process that started with Mikel Arteta 2.5 years ago at Arsenal. I think they're going to give Ten Hag the time to build the team, to build sort of a different culture there. I think that's what's needed there because attitude-wise, there's a lot of changes that need to be made. There's been some big outgoings. Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard. Pogba has gone back to Juventus. Lingard has signed for Nottingham Forest. Another reason I think that they are good to stay up. I think he'll be a huge player for them. Probably, maybe even their most important player this upcoming season. But it just seems like a dumpster fire there right now. Ronaldo seems like he wants to go. We're hearing some things in the media. We're hearing some things from Ronaldo himself. We're hearing some things from Ten Hag. Gosh, who knows? But he'll be another year older this year. They can't just rely on his goals for too much longer. I think that their other sort of attacking players, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, Jadon Sancho, they haven't been good. I think Bruno Fernandes is a quality player beyond the amount of penalties that he takes, but I think he's a quality player. I don't think he's just a penalty merchant. I think he's a good player, but it's they need more, and they need more around their sort of nucleus. They need defensive midfield positions. I think Fred and Scott McTominay, it's not good enough in those positions. But I think their biggest problem, they've also sent Alex Telles to Sevilla, I believe, on a year-long loan. Not sure about if there's an option or obligation to purchase, or if they plan to bring him back into the fold or not. But their defense needs working on. I think Luke Shaw has had a pretty good couple of years. They've gotten the butcher, Lisandro Martinez. Again, Arsenal was interested in him. We were priced out of the move. I think we decided we didn't want to spend silly money for him. Manchester United ended up spending like 50 or 60 million quid on him, and I think we said something like, hey, 40 or 42 or whatever, low 40s or right at 40 was as high as we'd be willing to go. And obviously when that didn't happen, I think we just sort of washed our hands of it. We ended up signing Alexander Zinchenko for 30-some-odd million, and we're pretty happy with that so far. Not to speak for every Arsenal supporter that there is, but in my circles, we're pretty happy with Zinchenko so far. So I think their biggest problem, though, is that, again, is Harry Maguire. He's an $80 million player, and he's their captain, and he's just not good enough. When he's not in a white England shirt, he is levels below what he is when he is in an England shirt. He costs $80 million, and they gave him the captaincy, so they kind of have to, for stability, quote unquote stability of the club, they kind of have to continue along that path, and I think it might eventually be their undoing. Yeah, he's just consistently, since he has moved to Man United, for country, I think he's been brilliant, slab and shoulders above several other players for country. But for club, he's been consistently not good enough since his move from Leicester City. And I think that's probably their biggest problem. And again, what are they going to do in fullback areas? Wan-Bissaka was bought for $50 million. He's abject garbage, in my opinion. They've got Dallo, they've got a couple other folks, but they really need some help and some reinforcement at key positions. It's not going to be a good season. I think Cristiano Ronaldo, if he does end up staying, I think CR7 is going to be less productive than he was last year. And I just don't know that Rashford and Martial and Sancho and those guys are going to be any better than they were last year. And so I think that maybe means less goal scoring overall and less attacking impetus for Manchester United. I've got them in 6th. In 5th, I have Chelsea. Chelsea have no goal scorer right now. They've got Kai Havertz, and I think that's almost about it as far as center forward players. There's rumors of them that just came out in the last 24 hours or so. Rumors of them looking into Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, former Arsenal player, former Arsenal, Dortmund, and current Barcelona player, to come in and play some center forward for them. But they've shipped off Romelu Lukaku back to Milan, back to Internazionale, Inter Milan, and they kind of have no solution. Kai Havertz is a guy that can score the odd goal here or there, especially in like a big game. But if you look at the numbers, I don't think he's been as productive as they would have liked. Timo Werner, they're considering loaning him back or even selling him back to RB Leipzig at this point. I feel that they are devoid in attacking areas. Now, they've really strengthened their defense in this window. So we look at, so I say strengthened, they've replaced well. Let's say that they've replaced well, because you look at Andreas Christensen has gone to Barcelona, and Antonio Rudiger has gone to Real Madrid, so the Spanish Giants respectively. So they've brought in Kalidou Koulibaly, the Senegalese international from Napoli. Koulibaly is 31 years old or 32 years old. He's an older player, but he's still top quality. So I think that's a good signing. Of course, they still have Thiago Silva. Been hearing rumors about Nathan Ake from Man City. Been hearing a lot about their interest in Wesley Fofana from Leicester, as we mentioned earlier. There was also some interest in Jules Kounde, who the former, I think, Sevilla center back, who has, I think, officially made a move over to Barcelona right now. Also, how on earth is Barcelona? What are they doing? How on earth are they spending money when they can't afford to pay their players like Frankie De Jong? What they've agreed to in contract. So, and he seems like he does not want to go to Man United either. So, who knows what the hell's going on over there? But back to Chelsea, they've strengthened a lot, or they've replaced well within their defense. But attacking wise, I think that could be one of the biggest, or sort of the biggest fall as far as any like the bigger clubs. I think that could be the biggest fall. And this is going to trigger some people. In fourth, I've got Tottenham Hotspur. I think they've made some decent signings, but I have not been as impressed as everybody else with the nature of their signings. Ivan Perisic, good player, good signing. He's well into his 30s, and I think he was signed not because he's a super duper world-class player. I think he signed because he specifically is an Antonio Conte player. He specifically fits within the system that Antonio Conte is going to try to implement there, which is probably going to be 3 at the back with wing backs, that are sort of hybrid winger wide midfielder, fullback type of players that can kind of do it all up and down the wing. So I think with players like Sergio Reguilon or Ryan Sessegnon, or on the left, or Matt Doherty or Japhet Tanganga, I don't think they're fullbacks. I don't think that they fit the profile of what Conte is looking for to go sort of within his system. So, players like that, I think it's a system fit rather than, this player is such a good player that we have to get him, we have to sign him now. So, again, just kind of one of those things. They've supposedly done all this good business. They signed Richarlison from Everton, and they've signed, this is decent business. They've signed Yves Bissouma from Brighton. All of this is decent business. And there have been so many Arsenal fans who are like, why didn't we go after some of these players? Yves Bissouma, because Bissouma is good enough to start at a Premier League club, but we already have our player that fits within that role in Thomas Partey. So it's just kind of one of those things. Yeah, I think they've made good signings, and I think they've signed in positions or areas of need. But I think it's been a decent window. I think it's been like a 7 or 8 out of 10 window for them. I still think they have some questions in defense. I still don't rate Eric Dyer at all. I think he's garbage. And I just still think they have some questions in certain areas. And I think those new signings will play for them and will be good. But specifically Richarlison, where is he gonna fit as far as a starting role? Because I don't know that he displaces one of the current front three, especially on the form that front three ended last season on. Son out left, Kane through the middle, and Dan Kulusevski on the right. That was one of the best front threes in the league for the last bit of last season. So I guess it's one of the things where is Richarlison going to come in and do? And I think Richarlison can play any of those positions. He can play kind of all the way across the front line. And I think with his work rate and the level of defensive commitment that you get to him, again, he's a Conte type of player. And maybe that was more of a pragmatic signing, saying we want when Kane is unfit or when Son is unfit or Kulusevski, maybe it's a signing where they want the decrease in quality. They want to decrease the decrease in quality. So they want the quality gap to be smaller between their first and second options in some of these positions, because Richarlison cost them a lot of money, and it seems like a lot of money for a player that's probably not gonna start if everyone is healthy and available. A lot of money for a player that's not gonna start. So Spurs finished 4th last year, and I think they'll finish 4th again this year. Their big thing is they have to avoid multiple big injuries this year, and I don't think they will. They had decent luck last year with injuries, and I don't think they will. If one of Son or Kane has a major injury, it might not even be 4th for them. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, as much as, I even rate Harry Kane. I think he's a fine player. He's a world-class striker. I think their best player is Son Heung-min. I do not think it's Harry Kane. I do think it's Son as their best player. So for me, as he goes, that team goes. And third, I've got Arsenal. I think Arsenal have had, by a considerable margin, the best transfer window of any team in the Premier League this year, or rather this summer. When you look at who Arsenal have brought in, when you look at their specific areas of need, when you look at one or two players that have come back from developmental loan or a developmental loan, I'm really speaking of one player right now, William Saliba, who's come back from a developmental loan and as pipped to kind of get a lot of minutes and a lot of time on the pitch this season. So I think we have purchased five players this season, or 5 new kind of faces coming in. And then kind of sort of a 6 is the Arsene Wenger, the famous phrase, like a new signing. William Saliba is like a new signing. But Fabio Vieira, who is an excellent sort of Swiss Army knife Portuguese player. This guy was the player of the tournament at the under-21 Euros for Portugal, which Portugal won. This guy is really going to shock people this season, I think. He's got one or two little niggles here and there, and so I don't necessarily think we might not see him for the first 1 or 2 games of the season, but he's going to get a lot of time, especially seeing as though we're in 4 competitions this season. So he's going to get a lot of time, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people. This guy is really, really good. So we've got him. We've got Matt Turner, USA international goalkeeper, and also former Richmond kicker. He used to play right here in my town, probably about 8 minutes that way, at the old and decrepit City Stadium. The stadium might be old and in bad shape, but the support is not in bad shape. So we have an awesome support for our local team. But Matt Turner, who has played for the Richmond Kickers, hell of a goalkeeper. I think by the time the World Cup comes around, I think he's got obviously a really good shot at being sort of the solidified USA number 1 for World Cup 2022, starting in November here. So Vieira, Turner, Zinchenko, of course, really, really excellent player. Again, another versatile player. It seems like what Arsenal is going for is high-quality versatility within this window. So players like Vieira that can play 5 positions, players like Zinchenko that can play 3 or 4 positions. They're going for versatility, but versatility combined with quality, which is what I really love to see. I've been a big fan of Zinchenko for a long time, and if you watch him play for Ukraine, he captains the Ukraine team, so I think that brings us to, 5 international captains within our squad. He captains the Ukraine team and plays in deep midfield for them, and it feels like every time I watch him play for Ukraine, he's absolutely brilliant. I can't wait to see what he brings and sort of the level of commitment that he'll bring. And I think that him, along with Gabriel Jesus, are sort of marquee signing. I think the two of them coming from Manchester City, they've been serial winners of things for the past several years, and I think that they will just up the level of the players around them. Marquinhos is another one, for the future. Really like what I've seen from him. I'm looking forward to seeing him perhaps replace a player maybe like Pepe, who I actually like Pepe, but I think the writing is on the wall for his time at the club as our club record signing. I just don't think it's panned out the way that we would have wanted. And also, I don't think we've really put him in a position to succeed because the type of player he is does not mesh very well with the style of football that we want to play as a club. So I think it's a fit thing. I think it's, there's questions about his defensive commitment, stuff like that. I think the writing is on the wall. So a guy like Marquinhos, who is really, really talented, if you watch him for just a few minutes, you can see how talented the talent is clearly there. And again, he's really young, maybe one for the future. And then, again, on to our marquee signing, Gabriel Jesus. This guy has scored 1,000 goals in the preseason, and he looks the part. He sounds the part. He's intelligent. He's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He's got an instant connection with what I like to call Gabrielception, or Gabriel cubed, Gabby to the power of 3, with Gabriel Magalhaes, our center back, and Gabriel Martinelli. So the Gabriel triumvirate there. And then you've got another player in Marquinhos. They all speak the same language. He's really, obviously, he's got some players that he can kind of identify with there, and he just has already come in and seems to be a leader based on some of the behind the scenes content at the club and the things that I've seen with my own eyes. So he is that guy that is just, I think he's really gonna go forward and kick on and really shock some people this year. So man, he's gonna score a lot of goals. I was asked the question the other day, who's gonna score more goals, Gabriel Jesus or Darwin Núñez at Liverpool? And I said Jesus. I think Liverpool will finish above Arsenal. I also think there's an outside shot that Arsenal could finish second and Liverpool could finish third, which is, again, will probably trigger some people. And I think it's obvious that in place number 2 I have Liverpool, and obviously that leaves Manchester City repeating as the title winners. So with Liverpool, I think the biggest issue and why they will not win the league this year. And look, they just played the Community Shield against Manchester City. I thought they were excellent, or I thought they did excellent to win. They weren't particularly overwhelming as far as the play and exciting, but I thought they did excellent with what they tried to do, which was to really stifle Manchester City and just kind of nick the goals here and there. Sadio Mané has gone off to Bayern Munich. And I think the biggest thing is that is like a guaranteed 20 to 30 goals a year that now you have to replace. I think Luis Diaz is an excellent player. He's a fine player. He is not the goal scorer that Sadio Mané is. So between Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez, those two are going to have to combine to replace the goals that they are losing with the departure of Sadio Mané. Now, Salah is going to be Salah, right? It's 30 goals, 30, 40 goals. He's going to be Salah. Jota's going to be Jota. He's going to score bags of goals. Those two are going to be those two, and they're going to kind of keep the same sort of production that they've, been accustomed to and the same sort of that they've been producing for years now. But when Sadio Mané goes, those two players, Diaz and Núñez, are going to have to replace those goals, and I'm just not sure that they do it. I think Núñez is going to have to shoulder the lion's share of that responsibility. I just don't know. I don't think that will happen. Now, obviously, even though that doesn't happen, they're still good enough to finish in the top two or three in the league. I think their midfield is a bit aging. Thiago, 30 plus, Henderson, 30 plus, Fabinho not getting any younger. Now they have some young players, some academy players, and a player like Fabio Carvalho, a young, really talented player that they've brought in. Naby Keita is still around the club. Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones. Some of these guys might have to step in and do the job, but we all know that I think that their midfield is not necessarily one for talent, but that's not for the highest talent. And we all know how much I rate Thiago. I really, really rate this guy as a player. I think he's one of the world's best, but their midfield is one about physicality and kind of being the go-between between their super talented attack and their super talented defense. And when we say defense, I mean it's one of the best when everyone's healthy. I think their best iteration is probably Robertson at left back, Van Dijk at left center back, Konate at right center back, and of course Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back, and of course Alisson as the goalkeeper. Man, that when you hear those names, it's just such a good defense, and their defense I think is going to keep them in games and going to keep them in the top 3 this year, because I think their goal production will go down, as I said earlier. Now, obviously, that leaves in the first position Manchester City. I think Manchester City is, I think they will repeat as title holders. I think it's going to be all about Erling Haaland. I would not be at all shocked to see him win the Golden Boot this year. The guy's got it all. He's got everything. Yeah, he had one or two crucial misses in the Community Shield, but I think by the first or second match day of the actual season, I think he will have figured a couple things out, and I think he's just gonna fly and fly and fly. Some important things to note: if Bernardo Silva goes to Barcelona, I think that could be a big deal. I think the arrival of Calvin Phillips is a big deal. Look for Foden and Mahrez to really kick on in their sort of winger spots. Now, Foden is one of these guys that can kind of play 4 or so different positions. Might see him spend some time in the number 10 hole or in a midfield position as well as on the wings. De Bruyne is still there, going strong. Gundogan was one of their best players last year. Rodri is one of the best in the league and in the world in the role that he plays. And then when Rodri's not available or when he needs to rest, you got Calvin Phillips now in that role. Excellent. You got some of the best, especially some of the best. And again, another team with an excellent defense. I think when you have, I guess, everyone that you want, you probably have your fullbacks are probably Kyle Walker and Joao Cancelo, and I think you have Ruben Diaz and Aymeric Laporta, and then there's Ake and there's Stones. Stones was excellent last year, and in goal you've got Ederson again, really good defense. And so one of the top defenses in the league and in the world, and probably going to be one of the top attacks in the league and in the world, especially with the arrival of Erling Haaland. So that is my prediction, 1 through 20. Now let's talk about top scorer. I think the good money is on Erling Haaland to be top scorer. I think the good money is on that. I think Gabriel Jesus will be in the top 5. I think both Harry Kane and Heung-min Son Heung-min, however you want to say that, will be in the top 7 or 8. I don't think Darwin Núñez is going to be in like the top 10. I don't think that's going to be the case. Mo Salah will be up there in the top 2, 3, if not, challenging, I think, Haaland for the honors of the top scorer. Top assister. Now this one is going to be fun to watch. A couple names that I want to throw out there: Kevin De Bruyne, who has, I think, his top tally in a season is like 19, and that depends on whether something was counted as an assist. He was very close to, it's either 19 or 20, so I don't even know how that ended up, because it might have hit 20, which would tie Thierry Henry's single season Premier League assist record. So Kevin De Bruyne, Martin Odegaard, I think he's going to be up there too. It's going to be well into double digits, in my opinion, for Odegaard, especially with a guy like Gabriel Jesus on the team. I think some sort of dark horses. Christian Eriksen. The guy is an assist machine. If he gets enough playing time for United, he will get into double-digit assists. So I think those are some names to sort of look out for on the top assister. Player of the year. It pains me to do this. I think Spurs will finish 4th, and I think the player of the year will come from Spurs, because I think he'll have a similar year to what he had last year, and I think it's going to be Son Heung-min. I died a little inside as I said that, because I hate Spurs. This guy's a good player, but I hate him. But he should have been player of the year last year. And he'll probably have a similar year to last year this year. So, I think Arsenal, their window and just what they're building at the club, I think is going to be enough to push them ahead. But I think Son is going to have a monster year. I think Kane's production might actually go down a little bit this year, but I think Son is going to have a monster year. So, yeah. So, that is the first episode of the King Joey Football Podcast. Again, my name is Joey. Stay tuned. I'm probably going to try to run this podcast maybe once every week or every couple weeks. It's going to be on a very fluid schedule depending on how busy I am. I'm a very busy guy, just kind of in my life outside of being a footy fan. So if you watch, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sitting through my ramblings. And please continue watching. Please leave comments. Please like and subscribe. Leave comments. Give me suggestions. Even if there's things I did wrong or negative things, or if you don't like seeing the Arsenal stuff in the background, that's probably not going to change. But say it anyway. I receive all comments and I'll look at all of them. So, hey, thanks and appreciate you joining me. Until next time, peace.